Alright, abusia me mo bibia kwa ba na yemfa bra Mega TV. Ye platform we so. Another segment na adru so. Abusia, in fact, ensema ekoso no enye nsem ketwa. En yeje emre se dia na mesrew se uto benya mre na wati Mega TV wati ase. Yes, wati ase nti me pese me delay ukra mese wo mre straight up yenkoso. Yewra President John Dramani Mahama na appointment a oye ya amagana obi bia ni abra oye den allowed na na say or commending for that no owura the retired soldier oye den odini course odini course position ni din Larry Bevlo Lati, and the position special envoy to the Alliance of Sahelian States Presidential Staffers. Okay, presidential staffer. Okay, entisa appointment we for me a crucial role. In fact, Sahara regions, you know. In fact, it make it a lot of strategic, it make it a lot of sense. Na ebiana nyami kan wonti aseye yenko na yenko tie conversation na akoso yewra Kwesi Pratt Junior sounds na one of NDC professor oba na adwuma bobo pa. In fact, maame no na adwuma bobo tie conversation ekoso a enya asem keto, and one of CPP, what I say CPP omo member baako na yewra in fact conversation no too hot and me pese me delay mo time na yemfa credit na Emma Pan Africa, that is allergy show no. In fact eshi na me pese me delay with time yanko straight na yanko say video we what I say yenti conversation how omo esi commendi yewra President Mahama an appointment why, and even within 14 days now or share as part of his promises no enema wa make. In fact chese owura no adwuma wa sha ase ebo you can say he is a serious and a visionary leader na nya bra opese move Ghana into different dimension opese on mind we ekononim, and he himself no so person edin oja some legacy bi wo hono ma owiache kwa na okotene fi as a former president a obenye dim papa enkoyese Kufado okwa no nkasa ni party for woneti ko mu dinatem anopa na wiana na dwo Canada pa no yewra President Mahama de mpese saade ne ebi beto no enti wa sha ase ehihye se de okaye ne promises a oma yina no he has started what executing it chese ekoso wano abusia yanko na yanko hwese video we yemfa credit na Emma Pan African TV omo ena moboa ya yinya sa information we de besom wo yankopon ehira yentie emfa brekoba na kai na de beto so
can be reset, but that means that all of us must be involved. It is not that is just the job of government to build this nation. It's an idea that we must deliberately put in the dustbin. It's all of our duty to build this country. Now, it's all of our duty in the sense that you can help push that reset agenda. You can help the agenda to restore Ghana to its past glories. We can all help to start the process that will cause Ghana to regain its position as the black star of Africa. If all of us together manage to build the right culture, that right culture that will hold political leadership accountable. Yeah, you understand? Where you disagree with the president, you must be ready to give constructive criticism. Those days when people are in opposition and they feel that their job is to paint the government in bad light, so that they will have the chance to take over the reins of power, must be discouraged. We must, all of us as Ghanaians, whether you are an MP, whether you are a minister, wherever you find yourself in private life, you must understand, we all need to understand that it is the duty of each and every one of us to build our nation. And we can do that in our own way when we also reset our mindset. Because among the things that needs to be reset is also our mindset, our belief, that sense of patriotism. We don't have any other country. The only country we have is Ghana. You understand? We must reset that crazy tribalism and regionalism that Nanado, it was already there. I'm not saying that it wasn't ready, but it was taken to a different level under the new regime. you struggle to find any country that's made up of just one people. When you go to every country, there are diverse people from diverse places. But trust me, our diversity really is our strength, it's not our weakness. And it becomes our strength when we realize that in spite of all the various places we work on for, we have just a common agenda. That agenda is the country's agenda to ensure that this country is the best country in the world. And a belief that all of your ambitions in life, everything you believe or you want to fulfill, can be fulfilled here. But that can only be done if we all come together as one people and build that right culture, build that right environment, build that right society, where the right values, social justice, the values for respect for all people, where true love for people and also for your country, when all those values are, then we can, in our own way, with the right leadership, and in the next 4 years, the leadership of His Excellency John Mahama, begin the process that will not only reset Ghana, but that will cause Ghana to take its rightful place as the black star of Africa. So to conclude, I call on everybody to support the president. Where you disagree, don't be afraid to criticize, but criticize with the mindset that criticism is your own small way of ensuring that we succeed in building that strong one Ghana. Thank you very much.
No, thank you. Thank you very much. Let me go through some of the comments you're sending to us, but if you just join us, we are talking about the first 14 days of the administration and there's signs for the future. What does it say about what we should expect from this administration? Well, a few comments. This is from, I think this is, okay. This is Yaokisi from Tadi. Says, indeed, the reset agenda for the country is on course. Firstly, JM has fulfilled his promise to review Ghana Constitution by setting up a constitutional review committee. Secondly, he has reduced the ministerial appointment from 30 to 23 numerically. Thirdly, he has dispatched food to various senior high schools to fulfill his promise to decentralize the school feeding program. Ghana is indeed on a reset path. And he continues, the NPP government turned Ghana into a cinema hall, and they were using it to premiere horror movies like Night of the Demons, Night of the Living Dead, Eating Alive, and Wishmaster. We thank God for JM who has restored decency and respect to the seat of government. Regards to, okay, thank you very much for that, Yao. There's this one from Martin Kwame Sedemi, who says President John Dramani Kwame Mahama has delivered on his promise to name his cabinet ministers in 14 days. This is in line with his agenda of resetting Ghana, and the future is promising. My advice to all of us is that we must first of all reset our attitude towards work, and this will reflect the overall agenda. Thank you, Martin, for the comment. A few more comments from those of you joining us. This one said this, okay, the way the MP have destroyed the economy and left many debts and unemployment for this current government to pay, and this will affect salary increments. And I think the best way the president is to focus is to clear outstanding unemployment and also continue to do more, to employ more and pay outstanding debts instead of increasing salaries. And when NDC reduces inflation, interest rate, and exchange rate, automatically all Ghanaian citizens and workers' salary have increased because the price of goods and services will reduce and will spend less money to buy food and many things with the same salary compared to the time under NPP we spend more to buy food and others. And this will help all Ghanaian citizens to spend less if all is done by the NDC. Thank you. You didn't add your name. There's Marcelino from Teshi who says, President Mahama should sit with the Kaye who moves the economy than the so-called men of something. Hearing the president say he will open investigation into the failed cathedral makes me happy. I want to see my former moderator, Reverend Mate. You want to see him jailed there. Marcelino from Teshi. There's also just one Mandela from Chichire in Gasao says, good morning. It is too early for this administration to start acting in bad faith. The people who led the charge to suppress innocent and marginalized voices under the previous administration, resulting in the closure of numerous pro-NDC media, are the same people who are being rewarded with juicy appointments by this government. It doesn't make political sense at all. Thank you, Mandela, who sent that comment. And then there's Stephen Nkwabenyawo says the newly appointed minister should go through the books and tell us our indebtedness in those departments. They should tell us the rust and the mess in all departments. Stephen sent that from Kwabenya. Ibrahim, Mashud Ibrahim Kanda Accra says, okay, he says, Mampugu activist for NDC thanks His Excellency John Dramani Mahama for appointing the following people as ministers and CEOs. Alhaji Sifu Baba Seidu as Minister of State in charge of climate change. Honorable Ibrahim Tia, Northeast Regional Minister. Honorable Abdul Kudus Abubakar as Deputy CEO for YEA, Youth Employment Agency. They are all hardworking professionals. Mr. President, we expect more appointment among our people who are highly qualified and ready to serve Ghana in the right direction. Long live the great NDC. Thank you for sending that comment. So those are some of the comments you're sending in early into the show. Like I said, we are discussing the first 14 days of the administration and the signs for the future. I come to my left, Prof.
And I'm glad to be here. Before I start, I want to say thank you to my constituents, the good people of Iskadu Ketan constituency, for voting for me and also voting for President Mahama for the first time in 28 years. We have annexed the seat, and we only didn't annex Iskadu, but we also annexed Sekondi in the metro constituencies, which is the 5 metro constituencies in the Western region. So my constituency executives, my branch executives, my coordinators, and all of my assemblymen, I am so glad and I'm privileged, and I'm glad that they voted for me, and I'll do the work that they have tasked me to do, and I'll do it well, diligently. Senna, as we started from what my brother just said, in terms of the climate before this upcoming, this election in 2024, Ghana was in dire straits. You know, there was the food crisis, people were going to bed hungry, there was the looming energy crisis, there was the haircut for our pensioners who had invested their monies in government bonds, the arrogance, the disrespect, it was just a mess, and Ghanaians were really fighting for some sort of a relief. So at that time, you could see Ghanaians, and you could just see that the affect was flat. People were just stressed. And leading up to election 2024, remember some of the utterances of people like Brian Achampong, people like Lord Comey, people like President Akufo-Addo himself, that he's not going to hand over to somebody who he has lost twice to or something. You know, all those utterances put a lot of tension in the system. So people were afraid what would happen on December 7th. God willing, December 7th came, the election was peaceful to a certain extent, and President Mahama is the president. So after the election, there's some sort of a euphoria in the country. You see that people are less stressed. You see that people are more hopeful. Everything changed on December 7th by the time we woke up in December 8th, or after the election, when we knew President Mahama had won that election. Only because we were just so stressed. So for me, it was like some of the best moments in my life as a Ghanaian to see that happen. Then we went to the inauguration. The inauguration, that whole ceremony for me was also very encouraging, interesting in terms of the people that came, you know, the world leaders that came to the inauguration. After the amount of people that came and the delegations that came from different countries, President Mahama's inaugural speech was also very encouraging, and especially for those of us who are young politicians. It was the most encouraging speech I had heard. Because remember that given the same opportunity, President Akufo-Addo would have said something worse. Every time he had an opportunity to rise above, he goes lower. You know, the saying about Michelle Obama that says, if they go low, you go high. He always goes lower than the low. So he has made utterances in parliament, in public, about almost like disrespecting President Mahama. But this was the one opportunity that I think everybody would have given President Mahama a pass if he had said something bad about President Akufo-Addo. But, you know, being the kind of person President Mahama is, and being a very astute, compassionate, empathetic person, he rose above it. So now he has given all of us a high bar to live up to, because instead of saying something about President Akufo, he actually even chose to commend him and say things about how they were in parliament together. He spent a significant amount of that speech discussing his relationship with President Akufo-Addo. And for me, I was sitting there thinking, why is he being so nice? But that is who he is. He's really an empathetic and nice person. So for me, it taught me a lot of lessons, that every time you have an opportunity, rise above it, stick to your own integrity, keep integrity, be honest, and also be extremely empathetic to people. And that is the message I got from the speech. The second thing I got from President Mahama's inaugural speech had to do with his calling for regional integration and cohesion. That was also like one of the best things that I heard, because you saw all the regional leaders come in, and President Mahama was trying to get, you know, that whole Pan-Africanism, that whole Kwame Nkrumahism. I saw a little bit of Nkrumahist in President Mahama during that segment of his speech, as to how the African countries, and more importantly sub-Saharan African countries, we have to band together and work together and also facilitate trade between us, because that's the only way, because the countries are so small, that's the only way we can maybe move forward as a continent in the first place. So I thought that part was also very encouraging to me. Then lastly, the issue of corruption, I think that got the biggest applause in his speech. He talked about how he was going to curb corruption, and also how he was going to set up systems that would really come up and affect the people who actually, the previous corrupt government. So I thought that was very good. And then shortly after that, he came up with oral. So he set up his team for oral. And so I think that if he doesn't do anything at all, and he's able to really have the evidence to bring these people to book, I think Ghanaians would be very happy. Because when he mentioned that part of his speech, I think it was the largest applause, besides the fact that the Burkina Faso president also got a lot of applause. I think the next applause was the oral, his mentioning of corruption in Ghana. As you know, what this previous government has put us through, the debt that they have left us, the haircuts from our pensioners, the fact that most Ghanaians were going to sleep without food, 3 meals a day, the school issue where the students, the SHS students, were not having enough food to eat, just the dire economic stress that the Akufo-Addo government has put us under. So Ghanaians were very happy when he mentioned that. Now, after the inauguration, he's putting a solid team in place. So you look at his nominees, right? The nominees, being a member of parliament and sitting a friend of the committee, the nomination of the committee, I think that I have learned a lot, because you see the quality of people that President Mahama has brought to the table, the depth of knowledge, the poise of the people, the way they spoke. I mean, I'm sitting there and I'm so impressed with the kinds of quality people he has brought to the table. And as I was sitting there, the one thing that was going through my mind was that any one of these people could fit any role. And you could tell from his choices also that the service they have given to their country, these are people that have served their country and they've served them well. And so his choice for me was, I think he's making all the right decisions. I think Ghanaians are happy with what we are seeing. I hear from all angles, all corners, how Ghanaians are really, really happy that President Mahama is making some of these choices. Now he has also picked his regional ministers. The ministers too are some of them have been vetted, and the vetting is going really well. The quality he's bringing to the table compared to the Akufo-Addo government, even when you look at the individuals pound for pound, the educational background, the whole atmosphere in Ghana is almost it's like we're in a dream. I think we still haven't woken up, some of us, because it just changed in less than a month and everything is heading towards the right direction. He has also set up his oral team, as I mentioned earlier. He has also set up a team to review the constitution. Then he has the secondary school intervention with the food, how that was swiftly done. It came up quickly. Now the kids, the students have food to eat. He went to the crisis area in the north where there's the war, and he is also, the swiftness with which he's moving is almost something we've never seen before. And as the lawyer spoke about early, President Akufo-Addo was like, it sounded at one point, it looked like he was not interested in anything Ghanaian, or that he wasn't interested in what happened to us Ghanaians. You know, he has also asked for a probe into what happened in December 2020 election with the 8 people that died in Techiman South. And that was also one thing that I couldn't wrap my mind around throughout the whole 4 years of President Akufo-Addo, because I thought that if he didn't say something, the person who wanted to be the next president, which was Bawumia, should have said something. And they all pretended as if nothing was happening and almost turned a blind eye to real Ghanaians who have been gunned down in cold blood only for exercising their rights to vote. So the swiftness with which President Mahama has asked for that probe for me is also very good and very swift. And so we are very encouraged that he's making all these right moves. As you can tell, he swore in a few of his ministers yesterday. And interestingly, he actually picks each sector and tells them what he's expecting. For instance, for the educational minister, he asked him to meet, have a stakeholders engagement and experts in education to find out what are the problems in the educational sector and how best to fix those problems. With Madam Elizabeth Ajari, Honorable Elizabeth Ajari, to do with agri-business. He talked to her, he spoke to her about, I think he said something to the effect that agri-business is going to be the game changer for Ghanaians. So he's expecting that she'll come up with good policies and good programs that will really help in the agri-business, because we have to be self-sustainable. We have to be self-sustained. The Operation Feed Yourself idea has to come back, where we have to grow what we eat and eat what we grow. So I think that if Ghana is going to change, and even our financial situation is going to change, it's going to come from what we grow and what we eat. So we have to put a lot of emphasis on that aspect. And so combining the trade and industry with agribusiness, I think, is the right thing to do, and also to emphasize the agribusiness, because once we get agribusiness right, it's either by adding value to our raw materials, by either halfway processing it before we ship it, or processing it to the final product. It's what's going to change Ghana, because it will also affect our foreign exchange. You know, we spend a lot of money to buy goods that we could have grown or produced in Ghana, like rice, for instance, sugar, all that stuff. I remember even during the vetting, she was asked about the Commander Sugar Factory, if that's going to be revived. And I think that she needs to look into those agri-businesses. When I talk about my constituency, for instance, we have a lot of rubber, and we also have a lot of cocoa farmers there. So the rubber plantations, instead of, maybe we can use the rubber to add value to the rubber in Ghana, and then maybe we can sell it to the Chinese instead of just exporting a lot of our raw materials. You know, the cocoa industry is one of our biggest income earners for Ghanaians, and now we've seen that a lot of the cocoa is being cut down for galamsey. So she needs to address all that, and I think that once we get agribusiness right, I think Ghana would turn the right corner. So some of these things that President Mahama, the people that he has put in place, are the perfect people for the job. He couldn't have gone anywhere. Like he said, maybe the individuals, even if you disagree with some of the individuals, I think that these are the right people for the right job. For me, I don't see anywhere there's any disagreement. I think he's done a really thorough job. He thought through the process. And so in the last 14 days, I think that President Mahama is on the right track. He has brought a lot of hope. He has inspired a lot of us. He has raised the bar. There's a little bit left of his cabinet. He has finished the entire cabinet, and there's a little bit left of his deputies, and I believe he hasn't finished with some of the CEOs of the state enterprises. So we're waiting for all that. But again, I can't. There's nothing. I mean, it looks like there's a new dawn. There's a lot of excitement in the system. Prez Mahama has almost. I feel like it's a second independence of Ghana in history. If we have to write what happened on December 7th, 2024, we will have to look at it as the second independence of Ghana, where in a day and in one voting event, everything changed. Our entire fortunes have changed. While he was talking or advising his nominees, President Mahama kept insisting that we should, everybody, especially those of us in Parliament and all his nominees, the era of disrespect, the era of arrogance, is gone. So this is a new era where all of us will be extremely respectful, extremely less arrogant. We have to treat Ghanaians, the people who voted for us, that we have to let them know that we are there to help, and we are there because they voted for us to be there. So every single time we do something or we say something, our movements, our utterances should be based on who sent me here and how best will I serve the people that sent us here. So he's emphasizing on service and above all humility. We're going to be humble. We're going to do the work that Ghanaians have put in front of us. We will do it diligently. We will do it with expertise. We will do it with humility upon humility upon humility, and we'll try and reset the agenda that President Mahama has put in front of us. President Mahama has also, I think, indirectly tasked a lot of us to really be cognizant of that whole extreme partisanship, which has, I think, plagued the country for such a long time. So for me, what I've taken from everything that I've seen in the last 14 days is strictly to be a Ghanaian. I think even in his speech, he mentioned, in his inaugural speech, he mentioned that you are Ghana, everybody is Ghana. I forgot the exact quote on that segment of his speech. And so he's tasking all of us to think Ghana first. He's tasking all of us to be Ghanaians at heart. He's tasking all of us to really, really step up to the plate, to do the work of Ghana and to reset the country in the right direction, so that, as my brother also said, we only have one country. Ghana is for all of us. It is not NDC or NPP or CPP. We are all Ghanaians, and so let's all stick together, reset the agenda, follow President Mahama's lead, and try to relieve the country of some of these really, really worst economic hardship that we have ever seen. If we have to write this in history, it will be the worst time that Ghana has. The last 8 years has been some of the worst days of Ghanaian lives. And so it is a big relief. We are happy. We are excited. We are all 100% supporting President Mahama in all his decisions. We are watching him. He is doing all the right things that Ghanaians went out on December 7, 2024 and voted for him with a margin of 1-point-something million people. And so we are encouraged. We are happy. We just want to wish him good luck. We want him, the Almighty God bless him abundantly, give him the wisdom, and also after that, the next thing is my Prof. Nana Jane. I have to talk about her and what she's bringing to the table and how she has lifted all of, like, women, the whole women angle. Now we have, for the first time, a vice president in Ghana who is a woman, and how some of us, those of us young politicians, have looked up to her, what she has brought to the table, her eloquence, her demeanor, everything about her. Like, she's going to have to be a study in, like, one of our universities, and we'll have to take courses because everybody wants to be like her. Her forthrightedness, her convictions, everything. So we are so encouraged as women. And to add to that, President Mahama is about 27% women in his cabinet, or in his nomination. So we are encouraged as women, and we want both of them to do well. We are wishing that the good Lord will bless them the good Lord will give them the wisdom that Ghanaian needs to move the country forward and to also give them long life. So thank you, both of you. We couldn't have done it without you, and we are so glad that you came in at the right time. The timing couldn't have been more perfect. So to end, I would say God bless them. Continue the good works. We are supporting, and we'll make sure that this last 4 years will be exactly what Ghanaians voted for us for. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Goel Olonya has decided to give us some education on who you are. He said you are probably the first female Ghanaian art student who has become a top international surgeon.
That is true. I didn't do science in Ghana.
You did that?
No. So I went to Holy Child Secondary School for my O-levels. Then for A-levels, I went to Archbishop Porter Secondary School in Western Region. I did history, religion, and English literature were my classes that I took in sixth form. Then I was supposed to go to Legon to read business, but then I had an opportunity to go to the US. And so I went to the United States and I started my undergraduate at the University of Southern California in Los Angeles. The difference between the Ghana system and the US system is that once you enter university, you have 2 years to kind of figure out what you want to do before you declare your major after the second year. So in the first 2 years, I decided to try physics and chemistry and math, organic chemistry, and it was very tough, but I realized I liked it. So after 2 years, I declared my major as biological science with a minor in Judeo-Christian religion. So my major was in biological science with a small minor in chemistry. So it's more biochemistry. And I graduated with a major, a bachelor's degree in biological sciences. And then I decided to go to medical school after that. So I applied to medical school. I got a scholarship. I went to medical school, University of Wisconsin, and I was there for 4 years. And then while I was in medical school, I decided to be a surgeon because you have to do another 5 years after the 4. In America, medicine is a second degree. It's not a first degree like the British system that we practice in Ghana. So my second degree was my doctorate of medicine. And then the third degree was my 5 years of general surgery. So I'm a surgeon specialist, burn trauma, critical care with reconstructive surgery, which includes plastic surgery, but more reconstructive, more to do with like burn patients. You know, when somebody gets their nose bitten off by a dog, then I have to kind of try to reconstruct it, or the ear. I normally reconstruct people who have had trauma or accidents. So I do that kind of reconstruction.
I see.
So yes, the person is right. I'm the first Ghanaian who has gone from not doing science in Ghana to now being a surgeon specialist and a professor of surgery at the University of Utah and the Ensign Global College.
Quite interesting. Well, she's member of parliament for Esikado Ketan. You replace Jogate in parliament. Well, let me do a few more of your comments that you're sending to us. This Prez Junior says, Akufo-Addo and Bawumia together with the NPP have destroyed and shattered Ghana into pieces in 8 years. No one should give His Excellency John Dramani Mahama pressure. There's Mohammed Lafia Abdullahi, who says, President Mahama so far has done well. Hello, Lumen Sawali says, Sana, good morning. The NCA man must go. Fafali GH is also joining us. Says President Mahama should quickly start negotiations with interested ECOWAS leaders, especially the military leaders in Russia, China, to build a common nuclear power system to power ECOWAS countries sustainably as soon as possible. It is time for African countries, beside fighting for common currency, to collaborate and establish common mega industrial projects with shared equity to process and add value to our major natural resources for exports to boost revenue and create sustainable jobs. Successful examples are Airbus, West African Gas Pipeline, among others. Fafali, thank you. There's Musa Ramatu, who is joining us. Says, Sana, good morning. We, the NDC, are coming to solve Ghana's problem, not to be flying in the sky. And the problems will not solve. Look at the appointments so far. That tells us that Ghanaians are blessed. Thank you for your comment. And Komla Genya says, Laya Dankwa, you're fantastic. The Skojo Fiagwe says, we thank President Mahama for choosing Edmond Irinchi fianco over and above the general sentiment from the grassroots. We thank the NDC for recognizing our lives this way. Tomorrow too is a day. Barbara Nto Buahini says, well speaking, Professor Grace Ayensu, actions not words. We are very proud of you. Francis Rastito says, this woman should be groomed to lead the health ministry in the future. With expertise as a medical expert and her intelligence, she has demonstrated while speaking. I think she will be a good asset in the health committee of Parliament. Then a few more comments on our WhatsApp line. It says the president's appointment of a special envoy to the Alliance of Sahel States reinforces regional peace, security, and economic cooperation. This initiative enhances diplomatic ties, promotes stability, and fosters trade, while reaffirming Pan-African unity. Ghana's leadership strengthens collective security, investment, and self-reliance, advancing a more integrated and resilient West Africa. That's from Dr. Felix Larry Sophie, who is Executive Director, IDER. Some more comments? Fantastic delivery, Prof. That's Benjamin Breu sent that from Esikado Ketang. There's Snet, who's a sinner. We need a savior to reset us to the work that Dr. Kwame Nkrumah began. It is true that all hands must be on deck, but the leader who has offered himself to reset us must clearly show us the vision or communicate to us how he intends doing it and how we should respond. Then only can we respond appropriately. And all willing to respond must be embraced, especially those with no skills. They are the biggest challenge because they look up to the savior the more for a change of life. If not, then everyone, as it is now, will be trying to survive the Ghana economical weather or find a Masonic group. Snet sent that from Snet. Thank you very much for that comment. Eric Inejisu Kumasi says, kindly allow me to commend the Honorable Lady Prof on her election to the legislature. This is the second time I'm seeing her on set. Prof, you're highly inspiring, especially for our youth who have almost lost all hope in leadership of our country. May the good Lord strengthen and guide you in your committed assignment. My congrats also to Nana Yajantwa on her appointment to the presidency. We need more of such smart women leaders to boost our democracy and governance structures. Thank you. Eric, thank you very much for that comment. And let me conclude with this before I come to Mr. Pratt. This one says, Ghanaians do not give two-thirds for NDC for nothing. Ghanaian gave two-thirds to the NDC to take control of the country. But the absentee should be careful. Interesting. Mr. Pratt.
Well, we're looking at the first 14 days of the administration of Mr. John Dramani Mahama as President of the Republic of this country. I must say that this has been an interesting 14-day period. And there are many, many things that have happened within the 14 days which are inspirational. There are some things which have happened in the 14 days which give us hope and so on. But at the same time, some things have happened within the 14 days which make us uncomfortable. And I like to deal first with some of the things that give us some assurance and so on, and deal with the things that make us completely uncomfortable later. One of the very first things that I have noticed, which is encouraging and so on, is the attempt to keep promises that he made on the election campaign. Indeed, even before he started nominating his ministers, he reduced the number of ministries by 7, which indicated that he was considering or taking seriously the promise he made about reducing the size of government. And I found that very, very impressive. I must say that some of the changes I thought could have been better, even in terms of the reduction of the number of ministries.
Okay.
Because it sounded strange, that you would have a Ministry of Natural Resources and so on and so on, and have other agencies responsible with dealing with natural resources outside that scope. Because I thought that the idea was to bring all of the agencies and so on who deal with the same thing together, you know. So I like the idea that the number of ministries has been reduced by 7. And as I said, it gave us the indication of what was to come. So I'm happy with that. Maybe as we go along, the coupling can be done much better. But nonetheless, I think that it's a good and bold step. The other thing which has impressed me also is his insistence that his appointees ought to be modest. And every opportunity he has had, he's raised the issue of modesty. He's raised the issue of showing the respect, you know, to the electorate and so on. I find that reassuring, because at least it keeps that still, you know, in the horizon. It gives a certain focus and all. I had been worried in the past about the fact that even in opposition, I mean, I saw his convoy, his campaign convoy, and sometimes I counted more than 40 cars and so on. And I was very alarmed, you know. Since he became president, I do not see that. It has not been carried into the presidency. And he's persistently insisting on modesty and so on. I think that it's a good thing. Then, for me, one of the good things is that he's keeping his promise to appoint his cabinet within the first 14 days. There's no doubt at all that that has also been achieved. Mm-hmm. So that's also generally impressive. Then you're looking at the caliber of people he has appointed. Not all of them actually fit the mold, but most of them appear to have been carefully selected and placed in positions where they have the relevant experience and so on. You understand? Now, I can understand why a president of Ghana may have difficulty in focusing on competence and so on. Because we ourselves have placed presidents in a jam, you know. There's so many things that ought to be balanced in the appointments. And sometimes it makes things extremely difficult for the president. One of the persons I've admired over a long period of time is this young man called John Jinapo. I mean, anytime he's spoken about the energy sector, you've had the sense that he knows the sector very well. He has his figures, he has his analysis, and so on. You get the sense that he knows the sector quite very well. And I was not surprised that he was announced as energy minister and so on. Now, Senator, some of the things that worried me, and they worry me very, very deeply, in the first 14 days of President Mahama, is the announcement that his government is even thinking about the privatization of the electricity company of Ghana. It shocked me completely, okay? Because President Mahama ought to be aware of the fact that the people of this country have resisted the privatization of the electricity company of Ghana for at least 30 years. Vigorous resistance. Cogent arguments have been made against the privatization of the electricity company of Ghana. Indeed, one of the reasons why he was elected, I dare say, was the anger of the people of Ghana at the prospect of the privatization of the Electricity Company of Ghana. So I was really surprised when first it came from him that the question of privatization of ECG was on the table. And then this was also repeated by somebody like John Jenapo, who I've already said I had admired over a long period of time, that the government was considering the privatization of the Electricity Company of Ghana. Now, my brother, under Mr. Rawlings, aspects of the Electricity Company of Ghana's operations were privatized, and it led to total disaster. Mr. Rawlings' government brought in the Electricity Company of France to handle the question of revenue mobilization and so on. After 2-3 years, the performance was so horrible that we had to chase the Electricity Company of France out of this country. And the records are there. Again, one of the governments, I think it was the Kufuor administration or so on, decided to privatize one of the utilities, that is the Ghana Water Company, and brought in Aqua-Vitan's Rand of South Africa. The performance was so horrible that in the final analysis, you had to chase Aqua-Vitan's Rand out of this country and so on. So all of these records are there. Now, besides, since 1966, when the Nkrumah government was overthrown, we've had about 500 state enterprises privatized. Sana, out of these 500 state enterprises which were privatized, only 2 survived. Only 2 survived. And the 2 who survived are hotels. What is today known as the Lancaster Hotel and Ambassador Moving Pick. All the others collapsed completely. So that should teach us that private capital is not necessarily the answer to the problems which are encountered by state enterprises. You understand? The evidence is there. Look at those which collapsed. State Fishing Corporation collapsed. Black Star Line collapsed. Many divisions of Gihawk collapsed. In private hands, they collapsed completely. So nobody today can make the argument that privatization is the solution to the problems which confront, state enterprises. Now, I ask myself, what is it that we expect the private sector to bring to ECG to make a difference? One of the major problems confronting the ECG today is just simply the fact that it is broke. It is not able to generate sufficient resources to run its operations. Now, can anybody tell us that the private sector has more capacity for generating or raising funds than the state of Ghana? Somebody must make that argument. I don't see how that argument can be made. But I want to hear somebody make that argument so that we can challenge that argument with facts. I said, I'm only looking for expertise in the energy sector. There is no private sector entity in Ghana which has more expertise than the state sector, the state energy sector. None whatsoever. I want to be convinced. None whatsoever. Okay. Which leaves us with the possibility, if you're talking about expertise, of bringing in external sources and so on. But that is a disaster waiting. A disaster in waiting. Because the question of power it's so very strategic that it is not just an economic factor. It's not just a factor of industrialization and so on. It's a factor of national security. Who manages your energy? It's a question of national security. Now, given the analysis that I've made so far, are we going to hand over our energy sector, a substantial part of our energy sector, to private capital, private foreign capital? That's shocking. One of the reasons why the electricity company of Ghana is unable to generate the financial resources it needs to be able to operate efficiently and so on is simply the energy mix that we are running, the energy mix. And right now, we have substantially hydro, and then we have thermal generation, and we have some very small green energy. That's the mix we are running. Now, if you take hydro generation, 1 unit of hydroelectric power costs at the maximum 3 cents. It can cost 2 cents, maximum 3 cents. When you come to thermal generation, the cost begins at 11 cents per unit all the way up to 33 cents per unit. So you can see that the more you depend on thermal generation, the more expensive it is. And the more expensive it is, the more likelihood it is that your tariffs would increase. And no government wants to increase tariffs for the consumer, because you can lose an election, you become unpopular and so on. So we've come to the point where the PURC has been extremely careful about raising tariffs. And the ECG has complained over the years about the fact that the tariffs that are approved are not sufficient to enable it to run efficiently. And one of the reasons why the ECG has argued that way is simply that our line losses are huge. You know, line losses, or what sometimes is called technical losses and so on, they're huge. And these line losses are huge partly because of the existing infrastructure. The existing infrastructure is outdated, is old, is weak, and so on. So we need to change the existing infrastructure. Okay. So one may argue that the private sector will bring in much needed funds in order to be able to revamp the infrastructure and so on. But I'm saying that governments have more capacity to generate resources, including loans and so on, than the private sector. And indeed, even the loans that the private sector usually acquires ought to be guaranteed by government. You take the energy sector again. I mean, Osajifo Dr. Kwame Nkrumah got his resources for building the Akosombo Dam from Kaiser Engineering. But the Ghana government had to provide guarantees in order for Kaiser Engineering to raise the kinds of resources that is needed for the building of the Akosombo Dam and so on. Now, I like to go back into history and to find out why we are where we are today. And I recall that by February 24th, 1966, Ghana did not have the kinds of problems we have today with electricity. Our major problem there was the rich. We had not extended, electricity to many rural communities and so on. The rich was a problem. But in terms of generation capacity, one of the biggest generation capacities in Africa at the time, 1966 grew. But even then, the Nkrumah government had decided that in addition to building the Akosombo Dam, we needed to build the Bui Dam, build what was called the mini hydro projects, build a nuclear power plant, and also pursue green energy. This was in the 7-year development plan of Nkrumah. In fact, at the time, Soviet engineers had already arrived on site at Bui. The construction of the dam had almost begun. These Dankwa Buzia elements and their coup makers brought in a so-called expert from England who advised that Ghana's generation capacity was too big and that we didn't need all the other sources, so we should stop. We stopped the construction of the Bui Dam. We abandoned the nuclear project which the Nkrumah government has started and so on. And for a long period of time, there were no substantial additions to our generation capacity. That is where we are today. The negligence of the Buzia government and other governments in refusing to add on to the generation capacity that we had. Indeed, it took a champion to build the Pong hydroelectric project. Without that, we would have been in a bigger crisis than we are today. Okay. So if this is the problem, how do you address it? If these are the problems, how do you address it? Do you address it simply by handing over to private capital? And you see, this government itself needs to learn its own lessons. Because when President Mills came to power as president, with Mr. John Dramani Mahama as vice president, one of the companies we had sold included the Tema Dry Dock. And I remember this very, very clearly. President Mills' administration, which included now President Mahama, fought tooth and nail to repossess the dry dock at Tema because privatization wasn't working. And the dry dock at Tema, properly managed, properly handled and so on, can become a major economic factor in Ghana's development. So they took it back. Why am I not surprised that today we are talking about privatization again? Now, significantly, the Public Utility Workers Union of the TUC has fired a first shot, has issued a statement opposing the privatization of ECG and has put forward other alternatives. This has been the position of organized labor all these years. It's not just the Public Utility Workers Union. And I recall when President John Dramani Mahama went to have a meeting in the Hall of Trade Unions, he pledged that he would consult the trade unions. He would work with them and so on. ECG is one area where he should listen to the trade unions and work with the trade unions and abandon this reckless part of privatization. It is so reckless, I can't believe it. Okay. Now, one of the best decisions that the Mahama administration has taken so far, as far as I'm concerned, has to do with the appointment of Lieutenant Colonel Bevlo Latte as special envoy to the Alliance of Sahel States. I think this is a masterstroke. Masterstroke. If you place it within the context of the geopolitics of West Africa. Okay. Now, what are the main factors? If you look at West Africa, the total population of West Africa is about 500 million people, a little over 500 million people. Nigeria alone has half that population at 260 million. Okay. Ghana is the second most populated country in West Africa with a population of around 32, 33 million. Now that should tell you a lot already. Okay. the lopsidedness when it comes to population distribution is obvious. So Ghana has something else in addition to just its population size, and that has to be its history. And its history is that history of Osagyefo Dr. Kwame Nkrumah, who spearheaded the liberation struggle not just in West Africa, but across the African continent as well, and gave Ghana a clout which enables Ghana to punch way above its weight in international relations. Very significant. Okay. Now, if you take Nigeria, Nigeria has so many limitations. Nigeria ought to have been the giant in West Africa, no doubt. Nigeria produces 2 million barrels of oil a day, huge economic power. 260 million people in this country and so on, huge. But Nigeria's power is limited. One, because of the insecurity in Nigeria. As if you go to the northeast, you have the Boko Haram insurgency thriving. If you go to the Niger Delta area, you have what has been described by security experts as a low-intensity civil war. And then if you go to the east proper, you have the Biafran secessionist movement thriving. Okay? Then the mismanagement of the national economy of Nigeria is also phenomenal. So Nigeria is not able to play the kind of role that it ought to play. And that comes to Ghana. You understand? Now, ECOWAS reacted so very badly to the coup d'etats that occurred in Mali, Guinea, Niger, and Burkina Faso, and to some extent Chad. Okay, ECOWAS reacted so very badly. Tinubu and Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo and Alassane Ouattara led the charge, and their solution was that let's send our soldiers there to go and kill people and so on, and reinstate ousted heads of states, including Bazoum of Niger. I mean, such a reckless thought. Okay? And it was so reckless that the Nigerian Senate actually refused to go along with Tinubu, voted Tinubu down. In fact, all the Nigerian states bordering Niger told their government that they would not allow their government to use their space to launch any attack on Niger. Now, come to think of it, France, who should have been the beneficiary, the ultimate beneficiary of this recklessness, gave West African leaders $20 million to go and kill themselves, to go and kill their citizens and so on. They are going along with it. Okay. Now, it's as a result of this recklessness that 3 states, Burkina Faso, Niger, and Mali, decided to form this alliance. A lot of people tend to think that this is a political alliance. It is not. It is first and foremost a military defense pact. Now, the 3 countries are saying that if you attack one, you have attacked all of us. We are all coming to face you, and so on. More or less a defense pact. Okay. Now I'm sitting back and wondering why West African leaders were so reckless, given the fact that ECOWAS was formed by military leaders. Go and check the time that ECOWAS was formed. See who were the leaders at the time. The vast majority of West African leaders at the time were military leaders. So even the very institution they claimed to be protecting and so on was formed by military leaders. So it doesn't make sense to have this level of hostility against military leaders and so on. It doesn't. Okay. Now for me, there are some reasons. I mean, when Traore comes to Ghana and is being cheered and so on, there are concrete reasons. Okay? Real concrete reasons. If you take a country like Niger, at the time of the coup, Niger was classified as one of the 3 poorest countries in the world. Fact. 1 year after the coup, Niger is now classified as the fastest growing economy, not in West Africa, not in Africa, but the world. They must be doing something that our leaders must learn. Indeed, they are doing better than our leaders. In one of the countries, I think it's Mali, its GDP was around 18.2 or 0.4% dollars, you know. Within this short time, its GDP has shot up to $24 billion. Is that not something that we should be learning? Look, from the Nkrumah days, all African patriots have insisted that we should build an Africa without a bomb, that no foreign power should be allowed to establish military bases on our soil. We haven't been able to do that. Indeed, Akufo-Addo signed an agreement to the United States of America permitting the United States of America to use our Kotoka International Airport as a forwarding base for its military activities in the sub-region and so on. These military leaders, so-called coup leaders, have come and they have dismantled foreign military bases on their soil. Niger used to house the largest US drone base in the world. It's been dismantled. The French military base there has been dismantled and so on. These are inspirational moves and so on. But you see, maybe that is not what John Mahama is looking at. And I don't know what he's looking at. Okay? Because he hasn't explained why he has appointed a special envoy for the Sahel states. But I'm doing an independent analysis. Now, if you do the independent analysis, especially Ghana and Burkina Faso, the people in the farthest part of Ghana, the northern part, and Burkina Faso are the same people. In fact, the boundary between Ghana and Burkina Faso cuts across villages. Part is Ghanaian, part is Burkinabe. They have the same culture, they speak the same language, and so on. Same people. We cannot afford to have a hostile relationship between us because we are the same people. You understand? We cannot afford. Now, beyond that, these countries suffer from some insurgencies. Okay? Everybody says Islamic insurgency and so on. If you do the proper analysis, more than that. Because if you take a country like Mali, yes, there are Islamic insurgents in Mali, but they also have the Azawad Liberation Movement, which is not an Islamic insurgency group. You need to understand that clearly. Okay. Burkina Faso has some Islamist insurgents and so on. So does Niger and all. Now, one of the things which is most significant is the fact that before Traoré took power in Burkina Faso, the government of Burkina Faso controlled only about 40% of the land area of Burkina Faso. 60% was in the hands of the insurgents. That situation has been reversed now. Okay? Now, what I'm saying is that these insurgents in Burkina Faso and other places have attacked northern Benin. In fact, the recent attack on Benin came further southwards than has ever happened in history of these attacks. Northern Togo has also been attacked by the insurgents. La Côte d'Ivoire has been attacked by insurgents in the past and so on. So perhaps Ghana is the only country which has not been directly attacked by the insurgents. But I've seen police intelligence reports, authentic reports, which say that these insurgents have infiltrated Ghana all the way below Tamale, heading to the Volta River at Yeji. And that they have sleeping cells and so on. You understand? cause for concern. These police intelligence reports. Recently, we were also told that the insurgents in Burkina Faso use Ghana as some kind of a place to retreat to, and so we heard that report in the media and so on. Now, how do we protect ourselves against these insurgents if we are not going to cooperate with these countries which are at the forefront of the insurgencies? So it is imperative that we build a certain relationship with these countries to protect ourselves. And that is why the decision by President John Dramani Mahama to appoint none other than Lieutenant Colonel Gbeblo is super commendable. You understand what I'm saying? Then there's the issue of trade. Burkina Faso is a landlocked country, and I think so is Niger, and so on. So they need access to the Atlantic Ocean for purpose of improving their own trade and so on. We can actually strangulate them. But if you strangulate them, you will bear the consequences because you share a border with them. If you strangulate them, your fertilizer will be smuggled on a larger scale than before. Your petroleum products will be smuggled on a larger scale and so on. Smuggling would be intensified and so on. The revenue we get from allowing them to use our ports and so on would also vanish and so on. Those countries themselves will also suffer a great deal, and so on. So any sensible leader in Ghana, and I will count President John Mahama in the category of sensible leaders because of the appointment he has made, would have to look at how to improve that relationship. Who better to appoint than Lieutenant Colonel Gbeblo? I'm sure all of you know him and know his background and so on. He actually started off his military career at Border Guards headquarters. That's where he started his military career. But under the so-called, and I mean so-called 31st December revolution, he was recruited for training in Cuba as a commando. Okay? He was trained in Cuba as a commando. And his colleagues in the army will tell you about his skills as a military officer. I'll just give you a small part of his skills. This is a guy who is so trained that he can jump from a flying aircraft at a certain altitude without a parachute. That's the level of his training. That's a small idea about what he's capable of and so on. Okay. He eventually commanded the 64th Infantry Brigade, and that brigade was not very popular. In fact, later I think it was called 64th Infantry Battalion, and so on. It was not very popular. But look at the skills they had and deployed, which kept the PNDC in power for 19 years. NDC in power for 19 years and so on. So you cannot run away from his military skills and so on. He has them. Then he speaks French. I don't know if he reads French, but I've heard him speak eloquent French. So he speaks French, which is an addition. In addition to speaking French, he headed the AU's anti-terrorism unit in Algeria. So he knows his marbles. Is that not how they say it? Yeah. He knows his marbles and so on. Okay. So I think that was a brilliant idea. I mean, many people, rightly or wrongly, expected that he'd be made the head of national security. Indeed, he had a huge group, which included retired military officers, retired police officers, and so on. And I used to follow their platforms. And I read some very disturbing posts when it became apparent that he was not going to be made the head of national security. One of them actually posted something which simply said that, look, we came to fight to make Mr. Mahama president of the Republic. We had two objectives. One, to make Mr. Mahama president of the Republic, and two, to make Larry Gbeblo head of security. We have achieved our first objectives and will do everything possible to achieve our second objective. I was really worried, you know. Now, I think all those people will begin to understand that there is some merit in the new appointment that he has been given. You understand? And that, given the necessary assistance and so on, Larry Bevrolate will do work which will be highly beneficial to the sub-region. Because the sub-region is not peaceful at all. You know, at all. Now, there's a huge conflict raging between Niger and Benin over the transmission of oil resources to China. It can lead to war. It can lead to a confederation and so on. I'm worried. There has already been a coup attempt in Benin. The experts predict that there could be more attempts, and I believe the experts and so on. So turmoil is around the corner. You need somebody with the agility of Larry Bevrolate, and in mentioning his credentials, I failed to mention the fact that he's also a lawyer and an academic and so on. So he has so many things that come together to make him the ideal choice for this position. And there's one good thing that President-elect John Dramani Mahama has done. It's only 14 days out of how many days more? I mean, 4 years.
Yeah.
Huh? But what you're seeing is substantially good. It could have been better if they had not added the privatization of Electricity Company of Ghana. Perhaps it would have been much better than it is now. So we congratulate them. They should carry on and make sure that the promises they made are kept. Whether the promises are good or not is not the issue. Keep them. Because for the first time, we want to demonstrate to the people of Ghana that when politicians approach them on platforms, they mean what they say.
Some of those promises are very interesting. One of them I heard this week was from his own people in Bali, who said he came there and said, vote for him, the MP. If he wins, I'll give you an appointment. And he said they haven't seen the appointment yet, so he should give the appointment. And I think they said one in her constituency too. Yes.
That's happening in so many places. Yeah. Bali is one of them. Ho Central, is it Ho Central?
Yes, Ho Central.
It's also one of them. Yesterday I heard about the situation in Winneba, which was also boiling and so on. And I'm sitting back and saying, look, NDC has 180 something MPs. Yeah. It is not possible to make all of them ministers. It is not possible. You understand? And this agitation for making people ministers because they come from a particular constituency and so on ought to stop very quickly. It's not sensible. It doesn't assist the president to achieve his objectives and so on. And now I've heard people in the NDC say that, as for the 60 ministers, you can drop it in favor of 24-hour economy. You can drop it so that our MP can also become minister and so on. My friends, if you pressurize this president to drop that promise, and he adds one extra minister to 60, you are not winning the next elections. I can assure you. It's a major promise which must be kept. That figure can only come down to 59, 58, maybe 40, maybe 30. Huh? But 61 is a no. He will not be allowed. There will be protests, and I will join. I'm telling you, I will join. Because, Senator, I believe very, very strongly that we can run Ghana with far less than 60 ministers. And then, surprise, surprise. You remember that in the last elections, candidate Dr. Alhaji Mahmoud Bawumia promised, after JM had promised that he will have 60 ministers, he promised that he will reduce it to 50. The people who campaigned with him and for him are asking JM, how can you do 60? Yeah. So if they think that 60 is impossible, why were they promising 50? The indication is that they didn't mean to keep that promise. You understand? One other area, I mean, Atu forcing promises that as soon as he becomes Minister for Finance, he will make sure that e-levy goes. And then Gideon Waku,
where would you find the money?
Spokesperson for Alhaji Mahmoud Bawumia on Council says, how are you going to find the money? There'll be a hole in the budget and so on. I said, but didn't you also promise that you were going to remove e-levy? So how were you going to find the money? I agree with my brother here that the NPP ought to be very careful. Because if they are not careful, they will push themselves into obscurity. They cannot be trusted again if they are not careful. They have to be consistent. If when President Akufo-Addo was chartering private jets and so on, you made an argument on the fact, you understand? And you look at President Akufo-Addo, and you look at President John Dramani Mahama, and you think that as for President John Dramani Mahama, he can have enough leg room in the same presidential jet that Akufo-Addo does not have enough leg room, something must be wrong with you. And then you come and make the argument as for president, when he's traveling and he's about to reach some place, he needs to freshen up, he needs to take his bath. As for John Dramani Mahama, he shouldn't take his bath. What is this? So I would urge our friends, and I mean our friends, in the New Patriotic Party to be consistent. You know, they should be principled. And being principled requires a certain measure of consistency. Because if they are not, they will soon drive themselves into obscurity.
Thank you. Thank you. Let me do a few of the comments that are coming in. This is Emmanuel Kumsi in Awo. She says, from an objective point of view, President Mahama's ministerial appointments is excellent. He is relying on experience, which is good. However, his neglect of new faces can breed discontent within the party. I hope you will consider the new faces in the remaining positions. That's coming from Manuel, who sent that from Awoshi. A few more comments from our WhatsApp platform. This is Tony Dixon, Green and Safer Mobility Research Foundation. Says, good morning, Senator. Congratulations to Lawyer A. Amaliba as the Director General of the National Road Safety Authority. My only plea with him is to make sure government commitment to road safety is his topmost priority. Also to make sure they resource the authority for them to be able to implement their policies. That's coming from Tony Dixon, who sent that. There's Dr. Larry, Felix Larry Silfe again says, Kwesi Pratt has once again delivered a masterclass analysis of practical sociology and political economy, presenting a compelling argument against energy sector privatization. His depth of knowledge and sharp analytical mind are truly inspiring, offering profound insights into Ghana's social, economic, and political landscape. Engaging with his perspectives continually strengthens my pride as a Pan-Africanist. Doc, thank you for that comment. There's more. Uncle Pratt is super extraordinary when it comes to data. Such resources are required to be protected and recognized. Viva Uncle Pratt. There's more comments on the discussion we are having. It says, good morning, Senator. JDM has given us our second independence from the colonial trainee, and he has promised us to reset Ghana. My humble suggestion is that we should take off the name of the coup maker from our international airport, who has brought us to where we are today. BB sent that from Accra. BB, thank you. There's one from Tom Cape Coast. Please, I'm a big fan of Professor Yinsu since her first win, but never was in 2020. I pray that she gets the Deputy Health Minister and almost the NATO Deputy Defense Minister. Interesting. Then there's more. Togbe Kupe Damsa II, aka Babylon, is it chapter 2, says, I wish this message reaches our President John Dramani Mahama this very morning. He must surrender to pressure to use the presidential, he must not surrender to pressure to use the presidential jet. All the complaints about using his brother's jet is an agenda to kill him. He must make sure presidential jet is fully tested under the supervision of a trusted technician who flies considerable distance before certifying the validity of the jet. The pressure of how much the brother's jet may cost the nation must not scare him to do the unneedful. Thank you, Togbe, for that comment. There's one here from Mbash in Tamale. So the Mahama must renegotiate our natural resources with the bloodsuckers who steal our natural resources to develop their home countries. If they are not ready for renegotiation, they can leave. The resources buried in the earth neither needs water nor fertilizer. Burkina Faso has done so. We can. Mr. Bash sent that from Tamale. And then there's okay, I think this is Mariama, who says, please tell the MPs to take good care of the things in Parliament. Millions of dollars were spent to renovate Parliament. They should take good care of the things there and stop hitting their hands on the tables. Mariama, that's Mariama's issue this morning. And then there's more from, okay, a lot of comment coming. Eval of Kwasi Nansuman says the appointment of pro-MPP individuals to key state institutions such as GRA and NCA by President Mahama sparks significant tension within the party, particularly among the grassroots who are dissatisfied with these appointments. The appointments of individuals like Anthony Sapo and Reverend Yerenchi Fianco, who did not contribute to the party's success to top positions, whilst overlooking deserving candidates, is perceived as unjust. President Mahama is advised to reconsider these appointments and replace them with and replace them with loyal party members who act in the best interest of the party. That's coming from you. Thank you for that comment. There are more comments that you're sending to me. We have to move on to our very next discussion, but just one text message. It says, good morning, Senna. Now that God has finally answered our prayers to ensure that the wicked Nanado administration, let's also hope and pray to ensure that the NPP never comes in power and subsequently see them die off in our very sight. President Mahama's first fortnight in office sends strong message to Ghanaians as a whole. Please extend my heartfelt greetings to our NDC, Senegal constituency chairman. Thank you very much for those comments that comment you just sent to us. There's a comment I saw a comment from Mr. Kojo Chumbuafo. I have to go through the comments. So this is Mr. Chumbuafo sent in this comment. Says, Senator, I first met Gracie, I think he's referring to, as we call her 30 plus years ago during our student days at a mutual friend's home in Maryland. She was on holidays from University of Wisconsin. At the time, I wondered aloud why anyone from Ghana in their right mind will go to medical school in Wisconsin of all places. That place is cold, foreboding, and a place where temperatures in the winter can go as low as minus 20 degrees. I vividly remember the answer she gave me when I asked her, quote, I have come from an even more foreboding place. I need to return home with something tangible, something my people can touch, end quote. So what she has been able to achieve ever since she stormed Esika Doketang and eventually annexed a seat we have never won doesn't surprise me. Mind you, she is still as beautiful as she was then. What Gracie won't tell you is the charity and gratis medical care that she offers people in her constituency and even in Accra. She regularly conducts clinics, preventative health? Healthcare, prenatal and antenatal healthcare, complicated surgeries, and a slew of other health programs. She even goes to the extent of assembling colleague doctors from the US far and wide to provide healthcare. This young lady is one of God's agents on earth. Prof, on behalf of all the people that you've touched, including yours truly, Yadasi, I pray for the strength that you found to go to Wisconsin to perpetuate you for the rest of time. So now I will stop before I get emotional. Professor Gracie, go and do your thing. I have an arrangement with Kojochum. If I don't read this message, I'll be bonded till the end of time. So I went through everything. And sorry for questioning your English. You are one of the people whose English I never question. Well, we'll take a quick break. Just a quick break. We'll be right back to have the discussion on what transpired in Obuasi. Give us a minute.
Yes, enti we and sema so conversation no. Yes, I know say at this far no yes, but the culture is very important. You Kwesi Pratt, how we see a show the consensus on last 2 weeks. What happened last Friday na etwam kra nye we yo na etwam kra no. What really happened at Obuasi Anglo Good Ashanti. Omo clash here with indigenous indigenous Obuasi people. What you say? Now we the course na. In fact, most of people they were what giving the blames to Captain Kwadwo Smart. Eyo no and almost say or can when the TV station and pa hit video no be okay. But that video no wasn't today, tomorrow, yesterday or what. It was somewhere in 2023 and all kinds of same no. And how can you say ono na or yeah also that kind of commotion and as that kind of yeah the also el hono abusia yewra Kwesi Pratt Junior and so Eddie and commodity be a form and will show some kind of strategies just or the same be a form utien analysis na medebia meka Kwesi Pratt Junior. He is one of the real people in Ghana's politics. Ono no enkoyi obeka akire ekoyi obeka akire se mutie ya na okase se yewra dwon the money Mahama onim na se eye ni system ministers na o promise ye no okoye ni system one kra na Ghana for he will be held accountable and him eye Kwesi Pratt ono kire mo no he will be part of those who will protest. Ono na eye me depa se ono wakase ono nso beka hu bi because untimi can chase system ministers we are now for back no we know say he will stick to that and MPP for instance and they are trying to set him up say we know say 11 I know say 11 there it has been scrapped already and the other taxes and in the other ministries we know so some creativity can no yanka akwa no untimi keep in promise na omonya John the Madi Mahama ewukroma etwetwe na srani abasa. So Kwesi Pratt Junior send a strong warning at the man and in crop for NDC for say they shouldn't dare and what failed even quarter of their promise. Your I guess a mobile betting but the muka if they are trying to what put it in place, they should make sure they do it exactly what they said. What you say? I was some year said your muka pepe. Then say you can system ministers and now can system one and no. It should be in line with what was in the manifesto. And Kwesi Pratt Junior so echirim eka oboasense nibi. Yanko na yanko hesa video no so emfa embra. I think so na the last part of the segment. Yakoba mega men so made the analysis ebeto form e the amount na bibia timi akoso ewo yam platform we eso yamfa credit no Emma Pan African allergy and allergy show, the hottest show every Saturday be a koso yankoti yon video no fabre koba bidnaka ina ebeto so ewo yam platform we sunya kopon enkoso a ehihira.
And of course, this morning we have in studio. We're supposed to have Honorable Neil and Tivandapoy join us. We don't have him in studio, but we do have a panel of 3, starting from my left, Professor Grace Ayensu Danko of Esikado Kenta, Member of Parliament, and then there's lawyer Andrew Apia Danko of the Movement for Change, and of course, Comrade Kwesi Pratt Junior, who is General Secretary of the Socialist Movement of Ghana. Well, we've already discussed our very first topic. We're moving on to what transpired in Obuasi. And this time around, I'll start from my left with Prof on the matter of what transpired in Obuasi. The military has given their own side of the issue. There's also the people of Obuasi saying the people who were killed were not to blame. In fact, I heard one narration which the assembly member told me that the people who did the thing left. And then some people went to apologize and they were gunned down. There are different narrations of exactly what happened. But the president says, we have to look into this matter. It must be looked into and the truth established. 7 people were killed in the process. Prof?
And then I also want to say a big thank you to Kojo Chumbwafo and for the compliments. I'm grateful. The issue in Obuasi is rather a very sad commentary on life, because I truly, first of all, we're waiting for investigation, so I'm not privy to any private information. So this is just my personal opinion. When we look at this whole Galamsey issue or mining issue in our mining areas in the country, it is becoming a huge problem because 1, it's employing the youth. 2, the local people, most of the areas are not they don't seem to be enjoying a part of this. So what is happening is most of the monies that are coming up, even though it's employing the youth, they're getting very minimal amount of money for what they do. And the work is very dangerous. So work safety issues are called into place. There is the whole idea of even children are in the mining areas doing some of these mining. I'm talking about the artisanal mining and also the galamsey, the legal aspect of it. So in my constituency, for instance, there's areas where we do mining. When you go up towards the Mpoho area, there's places called Atiasi, there's places called Mbredani. And when you go beyond, they're even cutting down cocoa trees and rubber plantations to do mining. The locals are not participating or are not benefiting from that whole mining process. And then the foreigners or the people who are mining or the owners of the mines or the concessions, they take all that money and that money is privatized. So Ghana, we are caught between a rock and a hard place. I mean, we have the mineral in the ground. We want to use it. We want to use it for good, but the locals are not benefiting. So I think that this is maybe a microcosm of what is happening in Obuasi. The youth and the young people, they feel like the mining company is taking up all the gold. They are not benefiting. Those who are getting the jobs are too dangerous. There's no work safety issues there. So I feel for both sides, but nonetheless, it shouldn't have resulted in anybody dying. So I'm not privy to a lot of that information, but I'm thinking that since President Mahama has said that he's going to let the investigative bodies really look into it, but we need to address this issue in the mining areas or the mining sectors of our country. What do we do with the youth? What do we do with youth unemployment there? What do we do with some of the gold that is taken out of the land to help the locals? Whatever it is that is coming to the local communities is never enough. The rivers are destroyed. The land is destroyed. We're getting a lot of diseases coming out of there in terms of the mercury, the arsenic, and the cyanide that they're putting into our waters, and it's even ending up in the soil, and that is ending up in our food. So how do we address it? That is one area that I think that we have to have a huge stakeholder engagement and really address it and make sure that the communities that people are mining or companies are mining, individuals are mining, also benefit. And the money has to be sustainable. We need to really look at this whole galamsey. I know it's a sort of a political hot topic, a political don't go there kind of conversation. But I think that with this new administration, it is something that we need to really look into it and hold a really big stakeholders engagement, including the communities, the chiefs, the owners of the mines, the people who are supposed to manage the waterways, our rivers, and all that. Because if we don't take care in the next 4 years or even in the near future, we are not going anywhere. Because it's affecting our water. You know, Ghana Water has come out to say that if at first they were using 1 cup of water to clean 1 bucket of water, now they're using 10 cups of water to clean the same 1 bucket of water. So even the chemicals that the Ghana Water is using is now having traces in the water we are drinking. So currently in Ghana, we are almost having a water crisis that I think that a lot of us are not paying serious attention to. And this water crisis, when you come to the Western region, some of our taps, we have not flowed with water for months. And we're all looking at boreholes. But pretty soon, you know, I know it's the water table and all that, but if all of us are digging boreholes, which even most people can afford to, then where will we get water? Water is becoming one of the most essential commodities that we are running out of. So we need to really, really look at water, the source of water, and what this mining or the galamsey, either artisanal galamsey, legitimate or illegitimate mining, the entire mining sector is doing to our water. And I'm hoping that with the new Minister for Lands and Natural Resources, he will call a stakeholders engagement and look at this issue. So the youth in Obuasi, going back to them, it appears that they feel left out of the national cake or the Obuasi cake of the gold in the ground. The company is a private company, so they have also invested. Now, how do we end up where the youth are fighting, like there's a conflict where people actually are gunned down? At this juncture, I think that it should be rubber bullets, or it should be like something. There's a way to curb insurgency or curb riots, and it shouldn't end up with live bullets where people actually die. So I'm not sure what the instruction was for the mining company and why they're even holding real guns. At this juncture, there's no warfare. So I feel like there shouldn't be a circumstance under which they have guns with live bullets. It should be rubber bullets or tear gas, something else that would disperse a crowd rather than live bullets that would actually kill 8 people. So I'm hoping that police would do a good investigation and come up with an investigative report. Once that report comes out, I think that we will all now be better able to speak on the matter, because as you said, we are hearing so much conflicting information. The assemblyman, I saw him on air saying something else. This person is saying something else. The youth are saying something else. So what is the true story? What actually transpired? But in spite of what transpired, I still truly believe that nobody should have died. So why are people dead, and what was the instruction? But the bigger issue is about how the communities that have mining within the communities benefit. What I see with our gold, specifically gold, is that almost all this money goes into private pockets. It is like, unlike the resource that we have, I think we have in abundance, that the money is all privatized. I'm not seeing even, I mean, I'm assuming that if a company is mining in my village, for instance, right, in Mbredani, I should go to Mbredani and see nice schools. I should see, like, the people.
But I've heard from some other quarters that 9 people lost their lives. I've also heard the figure 8.
Yeah.
Whatever it is, people have lost their lives and we ought to be concerned. Now, I'm worried about the whole picture which is unfolding before our very eyes. We recruit people, train them, arm them, put uniforms on them to protect us, to protect the territorial integrity of Ghana and so on. And then in the final analysis, no matter what happens, they turn the guns on citizens of Ghana. That's a huge problem. It's a huge problem. You understand? Huge problem. Now, they don't just turn the guns on the people of Ghana. They turn the guns on the people of Ghana in defense of the concessions granted to foreign multinational corporations. Master, clear. Our soldiers in this particular instance and in other instances are not there for our defense. They are there to protect the concessions of foreign multinational corporations against us. That's the problem. No matter how you look at it, who attacked first, who attacked second, and so on, just sending soldiers to that concession is a statement that the soldiers are there to protect the concessions against citizens. I don't know why we don't see it that way. Our soldiers must first and foremost, under all circumstances, be there to protect Ghanaians. That's part of it. The second part of this is just the raw statistics, the raw picture. If you take Africa, and I mean the whole of Africa, Ghana is the largest producer of gold in Africa, the leading producer of gold in Africa. Ghana is the 5th biggest producer of gold in the world. Now move around the world and see where gold is produced. And come to Ghana and see where gold is produced and see the difference. And ask yourself whether the difference does not tell a story. If you compare Obuasi to Johannesburg, why wouldn't the people of Obuasi be angry? They have a legitimate right to be angry. You understand? When I was a kid, one of the delights of my life and our life was just to eat oranges from Obuasi. They were the sweetest oranges you could find anywhere in the world. You cut them open and they look yellow. Beautiful yellow. Sweetest oranges you could find anywhere in the world. Today, I cannot eat oranges from Obuasi because a couple of years ago, 20 years ago, 25 years ago, the Third World Network published a report which indicates that the arsenic level in oranges from Obuasi, food grown in Obuasi, are 10 times more than what the World Health Organization says is allowable. We should be worried about this. The people of Obuasi have a legitimate right to be worried about this situation. Today, and I'm happy that we have a distinguished medical practitioner with us. Children are being born in the mining areas without their limbs. They are being born deformed. Some are being born brain damaged. Some are being born they will never see in their lives. Children are being born deformed. Why? Because of the chemicals which are being used for mining. And they don't get any benefit. Senna, I've been to Obuasi. I've been to Obuasi. You cannot believe that the biggest gold mining operation in West Africa takes place there. The roads are bad. People have no access to decent housing. To think that Obuasi does not have a first-class medical facility. Because if mining is leading to all of these conditions and so on, at least get a first-class medical facility in Obuasi. There's none like that. So this is the context within which we should be having this conversation. It's the context. It's mining, what it's doing to the community, and what the community is getting or not getting from mining. That's the basis. You understand? I've heard some people in this discussion say that, oh, we've given license to these multinational corporations to operate, so we have to protect their investment. Nonsense. When the concession was being given to Anglo Gold Ashanti, were the people of Obuasi consulted? None of them took part in that decision. None of them took part in that decision. It is the connivance of our ruling elite and the giant corporations from the colonial metropolis which is perpetuating this situation. And it's a situation we should not accept. Sana, in 1945, when Kwame Nkrumah, Nnamdi Azikiwe, all those leaders, Padmore, Du Bois, and so on, when they met in Manchester, the resolution they passed was that we should intensify the national liberation struggle, we should become independent very quickly and so on. And that independence meant three things. One, We should have the power to choose our own leaders. 2, we should own our resources. And 3, these resources must be exploited for the benefit of our people. Are we exploiting these resources for the benefit of our people? Are we? You know, I am getting deeply worried by the situation with mines in our country. And Senator, we've already discussed the 14 days of President John Dramani Mahama. Given the hype which was given to Galamsey in the election results, I would have expected to see some real serious action on Galamsey. Yeah. From the first day, not 14, first day. I would have expected to see some serious action. The announcement of a task force to deal with it, something. Because Galamsey is killing us. Only recently, the water company of Ghana issued a statement that a whole community in the Western Region cannot have access to potable water because the water is not treatable. They can't even treat it. The people of Sekendi Takwa, they are in trouble, your constituency. Because their water sources have been destroyed, completely destroyed. That is why people are angry. That is why people are also struggling to get some access to the gold on which they sit. So that at least they can keep body and soul together. That's the reason. We must take measures and urgent measures to take control of all of our resources, including gold, including bauxite, including oil, including gas, and exploit these for the benefit of our people. It's an imperative. We can't run away from it. You understand? Only recently, one of my very distinguished friends, Sir Sam Jonah, made an astonishing revelation. I hope you remember that we, Ghanaians, we don't have even 1% interest in the exploitation of our gold. Are we happy with this situation? And if we don't, why do we think that our people, our young people and so on, would not find ways and means of getting some of the wealth that they see, that they sit on? That's the problem. Again, you know, I am happy that the president has asked for full investigations into what happened in Obuasi. I'm very, very happy that he had done that. I do hope that the scope of the investigations will go beyond just what happened at Obuasi that day, the shooting, to cover a political, social, and economic analysis of gold in Obuasi. A full-blown political, social, and economic analysis of gold in Obuasi. So we can understand the problem in all of its dimensions. If you go and we do an investigation of what bullet was fired, what direction did it come from, did the indigenes have guns and so on, it does not address the fundamental problem. So we must set up a committee which will do a total, full analysis of all the factors involved in gold production, using this happening as the entry point of that investigation. That's the only way this investigation will make sense.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
So that is it. Enti the etimi akoso eno no. Ghana the challenge you easy cry easy. So far so good. Mama ye na yembo John Dramani Mahama abaso mfancheme. Because owura no and some more kind. So by within 14 days, obetimi ayi ni ministers no. In fact, it has come to pass, and even majority of them have been vetted and approved by the vetting committee. Except Andra Namumu, Agnes Namumu, my last year broadcast now with the Besumono. That was the title. Namumu say sorry about what happened because she was late. Oko Yebra John the Prez Mahama and Roko voter region. Oko people of voter at the Thanksgiving Eko Momo Eko assure me say he has not forgotten the promise he made, and indeed he is going to work with them. Teddy de bia oyeno na ofuru hono mba ya na obeswe in the last batch of his ministers no na namumu namumu sisi ono na the minister in charge of gender, children and social protection. I was saying could do her on time before say his excellency beba, because you know say Ghana and everywhere you can't go and what, or the president can't wait for you. Always you have to wait for the president. Even the inauguration of Yewra President John Dramani Mahama Akufo-Addo between no. You see the power pass power. Akufo-Addo ana onanti odi ni nsa chechire ni nsa benkum chechire ahemfo so. Odi ni nsa ochia no hu se woto no atwene nsa. Sorry mama nchia fast. Sad no. Akufo-Addo otimi ko gine baby ka se mukra mam to aba mame. Etino I don't deserve to be here. Akufo-Addo no timi radio so ka se wo kokromoti na nyame dia e wo ankasa wo dia. So if you want to vote for NDC or NPP, it's your own cup of tea. Akufo-Addo otimi ka che kwa abrefo se mo kwan na ya nye no. Ya mo ama asemo serial caller baako. Akufo-Addo ne timi ka che atogwe afede se mo de sa ibrog na si wonum no. Me nyam bibie ya ebie makobie. Akufo-Addo ayewe nyina o. Akufo-Addo no timi ka che eye amanfi akumfi, yes, sorry mfache no amanfi, right. We kwaku ayido ho ne de bia ne hemu ne firi no bro committee president John Demo Yewra me shifting free me topic no, but I want to show you something. Bro kwaku ayido ho a committee Yewra former president Akufo-Addo say ope the what the kun Yewra tamoso no omoye life. You see, that was very useless conversation at a course with Jubilee House, but only when I come. And on ohima ba ko sorry ya osi o nana yenso kra ni development o jebe yemfa sebi ebo ba kunkun numa mienu o kan ya osi o miss semi de ekumfi kwadwo atu kwadwo kumfi omuwe ekumfi hima and osi me de atu kwadwo e ma mo se munye den mo nto abama no and I'm kotu mu NDC ni. How do you expect me nana Akufo-Addo say me nye dem for development embra ekumfi. Akufo-Addo wa bi pen yo, wa ye bi pen dance village esi ye omu bie sutade ema sebi eburu enkofo aye displaced, enkofo aye frustrated, embarrassed, aduano mbedi po bom no. Akufo-Addo dia ye politics adenya makohwe the voting party ni voter for monto aba mame enti ni kwanse nkame ba. Oh nana Akufo-Addo kuro ya da ga chief baako den time ni Henry Kote tintini kutuyi o instructe no ka chense ko na ko ka kire akwa no ti ho no the wo see and sa no bebo ni di akwa no ti ho no chief no ti ho no. So sorry ye national anthem. Meanwhile no na Yewra Akufo-Addo de buy a friend jankroma ene 12 million scandal bi hye ne to efa ye ambulance papers anayeden asimo omo kan tem na wo yeko ogina Akufo-Addo nchen pe Akufo-Addo hu no. So if you behave like this as a president, how do you expect people to give you that kind of respect? Uye say to say president esi dan na nkofo bebu se uyo mompanyi eti na meka ina ne se omompanyi de se ni fem no uko program a wo so mu nyina ba ansa widen waba na that's all in na mumu already just do on na mumpanyina ba na ozo ndi sa dia protocols involved no mumfa na hye because me yes sure say anye president no mum ne well but those involved no the protocols no mo beka say no it means we're in because it is not it is not even respect for president to come and wait for you here what you say so sanity enti adia sebi yewura John Mani Mahama asase no the only thing that he needs are prayers and support from his own people adia ma Akufo-Addo efeli ye ne nkofo mo asase omunye different mindsets by looting Ghana's money and Akufo-Addo no so thinking childishly no wanye den wamfio mo ojo mo pemo mo asante bedi atu young guy we ene fia owo sebi Washington DC owo US no enye fikitwa Ghana had a crowd yenka real estate eno involve into akoda kitwa bi ti se Dennis Mrako Saboagenum akoda kitwa bi ti se chese na bi nom wo sika omonya you can never think of even want to me we sika wanyanye sika kitwa so it tells you say Akufo-Addo aban bae no they came to loot Ghana's what money omoba bae de ebi wia Ghana sika they didn't think of say oh say die na aye die moma enye den na aye die moma endwe oman ne ho kakra na Ghana ohia buruburu abai yemfa nye den yentwen ye chese yen create nnuma meanwhile no mo wo policies bi say one district one factory one constituency 1 million Ghana cedis ene amino kasai sani mani na nkoso ene amino kasai sa factories ni na no NPP fra ban mu na nkofo no ko wia mo iron ross eno na NDC for cha so mo chichi omo nkofo ka se NDC for the mrasha omo nsa ena no mo ye sei you see that is how it was enti misremo NDC for se John Mahama no oyoni pa ba ko adwempapa woni tirima ampa obetimi ayusu but moma mboa na owura no obebregu yesremo mumbuano especially the appointees CEOs MDs that is managing directors any chief executive officers and ministers now where you are mono you people must be accountable to him and right papa ye bra ye dey na Kevin Taylor then enemy de besomo and someone no can say uko uye minister now corner ministry we kai wo honum no let the people know seka we na wo furniture bia enye and logistics bia say let the people know men kwotena honum imponse nsumu ano enkonum tin enda enka se ministry we there afede 2 months time o ka kire Ghana for say kada ho no ebasa there's no way you understand yen tiase I'm telling you ebasa some of us yen tiase you come here and blast you say e didn't ye de mo na ka hon one kan kire enti ye kan bio those ministers assigned to the various ministerial offices, you know, we are pleading with you, come out with tangible forensic audits about the ministry. Either you have debt or what bonus or revenue. The one we are no meaning say John Mahama, your president wa Canada with all those informations. Na yenya aware. Na yempese ebe wiachi na ochina obi kwotena TV so na minister bi kwotena baabi na okwotena grant interview na obetanishi the image of that ministry no maybe ebi akoy na anye sanity but recklessly no ebi awo na wakoso ebi nso akoy no na Akufo-Addo abanya se bi sikadie na ahye omuma sikawia eni sika looting omujo omusa bondi ni nyafu organic chop ni nyafu organic chop ni nyafu ebia sankofo no eno modi you might not know enti de kan kra kire mo aban no we don't wish it I don't wish and this aban to fail in fact aban bia no am wish so fail because okonfo bonne o sikuru be bon definitely you are going to be living in or you're going to believe just say the bro from yamu fight chebe for bonny sikuru ba o ye den oni omo na team eti kuro no ba ozu betin bi eti be betina no na me pega na yi me I have no other place and never when do not Trump can he's trying to tell all the African leaders to build your country eti first no ena na wo furu ye kutu wa sorry se wo ko e wa America na wo banya green card ene usi ho no mo betan wo usi ho no ma illegal what migrant omo edi kutupa eye kwati kwani su bibe wura US no omo ntwe momo ene obeti after from February 19th sana mate February 19th of 2025 yeah February 19th for next month yeah less than 1 month America be de mi hu video bi akwa bi America FBI ni bi na akwa na gina hono se chele asem ya aba obi se bi se na asem na waso ni bag mu na wa woro bag na ma no mi se video mu hu no okwo no so umpeso ho be kire wa Ghana mo yam build a country de bia meka oman we nyu nyaman because of bad leadership and so ye di dwuma de bi hye wonsa adwemboni nti ube wa adwen se ubedi oman ni sika adwemboni nti ube wa adwen se oman na japade e na ado nsa bebom ye ma o minister opese wusisa wiasika si na gufie and akufu ado appointees ya oman go and check sisi abnada pampase and won say dollar na ikosoro do you know why the dollars are with them and won say dollar na ikosoro won say dollar na ikosoro yes dollar na ikosoro I don't know meaning obi a observe bi an me always I check it dollar na ikosoro and ikosoro sa it tells you say some of them are hoarding it so the only thing ni say on be so mu ya na Ghana for ka say akwa no beji akundwa na sema bon and dollar na ekoi but inshallah we didn't say enye denya dollar enkwa nkopim ebi duma Ghana for akasa and through good governance anyhow you John the Prez Mahama ni ensia bedie a wo ye adwuma no inshallah oman we ebegina ye enti yesremo obi bia ye John the Prez Mahama de adwuma be show nsa no should be accountable to the person and Ghanaians as well. That is why every minister be also declare asset before you take the mantle. I also declare asset where Adia Ghana yani say your constitution. That is why John the Prez Mahama, your presidency, he needs the review of the constitution, and it is one of the best in our chance here. Because how can you tell me say your constitution or be declared minister be CEO be appointee be declared the asset or declare no a year privately to the president? No, it shouldn't have happened in that manner. I was say na edi adwuma hye wonsa because president no ye no and our pori to many be amount. It for that matter come out and declare the asset to the whole of Ghanaians. Me wo car baako, me wo fie baako, and me wo amuka nsa asase mienu amenya nya ho hwe eye. Enti from 1 year ago ye hu se wo car no e ko miensa enan a ye hu sa ko ye bisa how did you and ye wo mra bi wo Ghana ha yetimi fra ne abisa wo sa sika we ana sa japade wunya no wo he wadwuma wo ye ni sen o se sa mra ni na ye nyusu okrom ha wo enka ga bi asaro kire da ko bedam enka bedam because ne law firm no ko ntimi mani nya sa $5 million mansion na wo no wo is legal no enka bedam enti yesremo yewu akufa ye John Mahama munyire mo ho na munye adwuma na munchichi and ade ba kwa Ghana for ehwe ni mu ban the ora no ye be hu Ghana akufa da appointee ba ko odi akonya ba okọ na de no bidi no omo ahye ni so ontu asika we wantimi a onkodam because nkofo no disika nkofo na se oman no nkofo no lutu majority of them omo awi sika no even their own MPs yewra Eugene Boachentwi eba abonti beka edwedenim omunna ba abonti beka say they know where about of all these monies and where the MPs they have kept it. Eti John Mahama yewra president yebu pa ni die mu enim say adwuma no beye eti ministers no tell them they should be accountable to Ghanaians and this are etija ukroma ye na ye beti ne kankai. Yakopon Israel Hanum your number one authentic platform. I know say you love this segment of DBI Debra. That is how we are going to do what you say. Inshallah, Yankopon wo. Timesro, subscribe to your channel no because had a hot cake, a bad politics, I bet you the facts. You real one what you say. You know more than 2 more no more jana ho, no more there be mega de make him and one dear coso. Make him and one who said be or my team and how well it is what moving. Eti mesro subscribe na fa comment tum like idumadi na share na foforo enti me enye bi hwe me ma me cheba fo e United States of America eye ma me yakopon hira dodo yakopon nyo kese de bia umpai bo support how the Mega TV samso ma me we bi e UK yakopon enye me ma me kese obi bia hwe Mega TV no I salute to Mr. Elon Kwadwo yakopon hira me ma me ba ko so tachi enso hwe me yakopon hira samso no me ma me fosua news fosua and obi bia me ntimi bodin otumfo TV wherever that you are watching me from Canada Amsterdam Italy bohwe me hwa ya me hu pa I appreciate it man I appreciate it yakopon hira obi bia baka bye bye.